welcome back to another episode of Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. I'm Goo, joined as always by McKenna.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
We're still racing. We're racing all around.
Yeah.
We're becoming
kind
racing.
of in a racing era.
Yeah, we took a little bit of a break to, for football season.
Yeah.
We planned that out, obviously, but now we're back racing. We're in our lane, I guess.
Yeah.
Not really. It's not really our
No.
specialty, but
we're in a lane.
but we've got, of course, we're talking about Extreme G today, and we've got some great guests. First of all, we've got returning to us for I think the third time. We've got Dre from Fine Time.
Hello, it's your boy Dre, if you're nasty, over a loud hip-hop beat. Yes, I am back on the Flashback 64. Thanks.
It's always good to have you. And we have a brand new guest today from the barSILENCE podcast. We have Jameson. Hey, Jameson.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here, man.
It's great to have you on. Love your podcast. Dre, you were saying before we were recording a couple days ago, you were going to go off on a super long tangent about the barSILENCE podcast.
Yes, but, here's my 45-minute segment about barSILENCE. Yes,
the floor is yours.
I scripted out. No, for real, barSILENCE is one of my absolute favorites. I have done a couple of solo episodes in Fine Time history, just a couple. I wouldn't have even done them if I never listened to barSILENCE. Legit, you were the inspiration for even me thinking I could even try. And I think those episodes turned out pretty good, right? But
yes,
barSILENCE is peak to me. I fucking love that show.
Dude, that really means a lot. Thanks, man. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
You guys,
we love to jam it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And it's perfect because we'll get into it obviously when we start talking about the game. But you've obviously covered this game over there. But before we get into any of that, first thing, kind of icebreaker question we like to do for all our first time guests is ask your background with the Nintendo 64.
I love the Nintendo 64. And it's actually great too. I'm really glad you guys asked me to be on and asked me a little bit ago about which one I'd want to do, because I've always had a really good affinity for the Nintendo 64. It was probably the first system that I realized that I knew about before it came out. So there was that pre-release hype kind of feeling. And it was because
That's
for me,
cool.
I discovered it through the Killer Instinct arcade machine.
Yeah.
It had this intro where the announcer says coming to your home and on the Nintendo Ultra 64 in 1995, which of course didn't come out then. It came out in 96, but
And it was not called the Nintendo Ultra 64.
it wasn't. Yeah, but the name Ultra was awesome, and that got my attention really fast. So I was always trying to eat up whatever I could information wise on Nintendo Power or Electronic Gaming Monthly or something like that. Whatever I could learn about the Nintendo 64, I was all in on them. And I actually didn't get one when it first came out. Interestingly, this is something that my mom reminded me of recently because I was talking to her about it. I used to lie to her about where I was going on my bicycle. And then I would ride to the Blockbuster that was almost, I thought it was way farther. It was only 3 or 4 miles away from the house. So it was still a 20 or 30 minute bicycle ride, but I memorized it when I was a kid just so I could ride my bike there and play Super Mario 64 until they kicked me out. So
That's so awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a short bus ride away from a Toys R Us, so I remember going down there more than a few times to go to Carl's Jr. Quotey Fingers I'm making in the air, but I was really going to Toys R Us to get to play some Mario.
Dude, that demo was awesome, man. It sold me.
I miss it. I never do that anymore. Gotta go to we would do that with Walmart in my town. That's really all we had. And it'd be let's go there and play maybe Mario Galaxy. They had a demo of before that came out, and we'd go when Guitar Hero got big. You just go to play Guitar Hero,
Yeah.
They had to they had to eventually tell people you gotta stop. You can't just come here and play Guitar Hero.
Yeah. The big question was, are your parents here? And as soon as they saw my face, they knew the answer was no.
I wouldn't try to push it though. I wouldn't try to play it for like 20 minutes. I didn't want to press my luck, but yeah, I definitely did get my fair share in before it came out. I also had like a Crash Bandicoot right next to it, like a pre-release one, and no one gave a shit. Everyone just wanted to play Mario. It was sitting there, but it's like, okay, whatever.
That's great. Well, that's cool to hear about Killer Instinct. Like, I think we asked sometime around when we did that episode, or we asked someone, because we were a little more hazy on the launch. I was pretty young. You were extremely
a year and a half old.
Extremely young. And I didn't realize how big of a deal Killer Instinct was as a whole, but we've talked to people, and then also looking back at Nintendo Power and stuff, like even before they fully like announced the N64, like the most hyped thing was Killer Instinct Gold. Like in like the months even before that, people were like, that was like the whatever most wanted on Nintendo Power, I would see would be Killer Instinct for the Ultra 64 or whatever. And I'm like, all right, cool, that's sweet. I was kind of oblivious to that, I guess. Which your Killer Instinct episode, also great.
Dude, I loved Killer Instinct. That was the other thing that I used to lie to my mom about where I'd go. I'd ride my bike to the mall and I'd play Killer Instinct with whatever quarters I could scratch up. So
that was the biggest promotion I've ever seen around an arcade cabinet was Killer Instinct. We being from San Diego, we drove up to Vegas every so often because it's only like 5-hour trip or something like that. It's not that bad. We go up there for a weekend, and Vegas had the best arcades. They had stuff on pre-release or location test, as it was called in the arcades. They had a Killer Instinct at, I don't remember what casino. It was, like I said, it was the biggest deal I'd ever seen. I'd never seen that many people around a machine just to look at it. And I finally pushed my way through. I'm like 13 or something at the time, so I'm not like super short, but I still had to push my way through. And I just could not believe what I was looking at. And of course, I'm a Nintendo kid. The Nintendo 64 was on hype for me, like top maximum hype level. So that's probably the biggest commotion I've seen around a machine, period, was Killer Instinct. That shit was really big. It's easy to forget now, but it really was that big a deal.
It really was. It really was. Man, it was wild because you have people lined up quarters and somehow they knew the honor system of whose quarter was what. And then it was all waiting in line just to play this game. And and the rare moment where nobody was playing it, that's when you heard that intro loop where it would mention the Ultra 64.
That's sick. I love that. It's good to get your intro to the N64. We already know Dre's story. We don't have to get into that again.
You don't have to do that. Yep. You already know my Nintendo 64 story. Though I do want to say one thing since we're talking about Killer Instinct. I don't know if I said this before when we talked about N64, but speaking of Toys R Us, like my dad, I recently told this story on Select and Start as well when we were talking about Mario Galaxy. For some reason I brought it up. But anyway, I went to my dad, for some reason, for like Christmas 1996, he just gave me $100 because he was kind of a shitbag. He didn't really know what I wanted for Christmas. He didn't really know what games I wanted. So he was just like, here's $100. So I went to Toys R Us and I bought Killer Instinct Gold for $84.99 at Toys R Us, because that's what that shit cost back then.
Yeah.
And plus California tax, I was looking at, again, going back to Carl's Jr., I had enough to buy like a Famous Star afterwards, and that was about it. I had Killer Instinct Gold and a burger for Christmas, which was great. I got my $84.99 worth. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I played the hell out of that cartridge, but just like, I just remember, like, I don't know, that's part of my quintessential N64 story, I think, is just going to spend an entire $100 on Killer Instinct Gold.
You would have to do that sometimes. Those were expensive.
Yeah,
the game was not cheap.
That got me thinking, is there a game that you were like that for, like where you'd go and play the demos and things like that? You were like obsessed with it before it came out?
I don't remember being aware of like a demo for a upcoming game. Like, I just remember going into a store and there being demos available.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily something I, was really looking forward to. I might have done like, there might have been like a Mario Kart one or something. I don't remember specific games, but I think it just like Target, I've played some stuff.
Yeah, it's always a good time.
I miss like dedicated demo units. They were super cool.
That would really get you.
I feel like the last time I played one was like Splatoon or something. It has something Wii U era. I feel like that's the last time I ever even saw something like that.
Yeah, I guess it was like a couple years where it was like, well, I don't even want to like touch anything someone else has touched.
Yep.
Yeah, way back era. Yeah.
The before times.
Yeah.
The before times.
It's great to have you both back. Before we jump in to talk about the game, we always like to flash back to the time period the game came out as we're moving chronologically. And so I've got a little flashback segment for you guys. We're moving forward. Our last episode we were in October 24th. We're inching through the we're getting in that holiday season. Yeah. So we are in October 27th is when Extreme G came out. And okay, I'm sorry to say this, but the number one song for the past it's not because of the song. The number one song for the past 4 weeks, and will continue to be forever, is The Candle in the Wind, the 1997 version. Now I haven't been trying to make this podcast the like what's everyone's memory of the passing of Princess Diana, but as someone who was there, you remember the launch of the N64. Dre, do you have any feelings about the song or this time period or
it was
like
really
that?
weird. It was very strange because like here's the thing, if this happened nowadays we'd know all about it because of social media and like stuff like that. I just remember I was at a friend's house for the weekend and one of his friends was there too. There's 3 of us were sitting around waiting to watch Saturday Night Live, and we never got to watch Saturday Night Live because that happened. So we just saw this coverage and we were just sort of disbelief, like, really? What? Like, we were just kind of, and look, we're too young to really understand the gravity of that, right? Also, we're 3 dumb American kids and we don't live in the UK. Like, we don't really understand the, it's just like, we were just sort of disbelief. It's like, okay, I guess we're not watching SNL. I guess let's go play Extreme G. We didn't have Extreme G at that point. But like, yeah, it was just we were too young to really absorb it, I guess. But I do remember it happening, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's a common refrain is like, oh, I was a kid and I just wanted to go play video games or whatever,
Yeah. Old
Watch
enough to
SNL.
understand what was happening, but too young to really understand the gravity of it is basically where I was at. That's 15 years old in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, Jameson, how about you? I mean, if you don't want to, if it's a touchy subject, we can.
No, it's not super close to my heart as an American either, but I do remember it. I think it's part of that like monoculture aspect of the 90s where everyone knew the same news or knew the same media. So like while we wouldn't have gotten it from social media, you were obliterated by it by whatever outlet you had because there was only a handful of them at the time. Mm-hmm. So like I knew and understood that who she was and that she passed. I can't honestly say that I knew much about. It was Elton John, right?
Yeah. Elton John.
Yeah, I knew his name, but I don't know if I knew any. I had a favorite song of Elton John's, or if I had any gravity for me. But yeah.
Oh yeah. How about that? Just as the song, Dre, were you like finally when this song came out?
Yeah, it was fine. It's never been one of my like Elton John jams. So like, it's fine. Obviously it was very important. It was a worldwide thing because people loved her. So I really think it was more about her than it was the song. It was just the song was just this representation of this thing, which is how music should work sometimes. So that's good.
Yeah, big time. I think I had the most like when we watched him like perform it at her funeral or something like that, and my takeaway, it was not very deep or insightful, but I was just like, man, he's a really good singer. It's like, I guess that makes sense why he's got that job.
Yeah, I remember that performance was like, you know how like sometimes someone would have, this does not happen anymore, the on a reward show where it's like, someone had some killer performance at the Grammys or something, and they would turn that into a music video. They would just like play that on like MTV or VH1, like that would be like the video that they would play that Elton John as like a music video.
In terms of, we've also got number one movie. It's still I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's in week 2 of its 3-week spot at number 1. Okay.
I feel like we watched that so long ago now.
Like I said, we're monthly and we're inching forward in time, so you can't really listen to this in real time and experience it. It's like by the end of this podcast, you will have experienced the late 90s, early 2000s in like a weird warped time.
Yeah.
But that's fine. Okay. These things I included I don't know the significance of these, so but we'll see.
The 0-1 pitch. A liner off Nagy's glove into center field. The Florida Marlins have won the World Series.
World Series, October 26th. The Florida beats Cleveland Indians 3-2 in Game 7. The Marlins.
Yes, incredible World Series. Baseball's my favorite sport. That was an insane World Series. Absolutely insane. That's one for the ages.
That was a tough one for me as a kid because I actually used to live in Cleveland. So I went to the World Series in '95. So this was the comeback year. Like they're back in, and it was a really big deal. So little kid me, I had my hopes that this was going to be the year. It wasn't, but it was a really great series.
Oh, buddy, yeah, that's a tough one if you're a Cleveland fan. But yeah, the Marlins 4 years of existence, winning their first World Series, that was just crazy.
Okay, we got some mileage out of that. That's good.
Yeah,
I would imagine most of your guests are like, "Huh? What is a baseball?"
Yeah.
The look on McKenna's face was just like,
I don't know.
I got you covered.
Here's one because we played that F1 game, so we're F1 people now. Also, the same day, F1 World Championship, Jacques Villeneuve finishes 3rd in the European Grand Prix. First Canadian to win F1 World Drivers' Championship. So for all the F1 people we've brought in from our episode, there you go. I don't know anything about that.
I had one F1 game on Dreamcast, and that's the extent of my F1 knowledge. So,
okay, cool.
I like F1, but that was a little bit before I really was able to know much about it. All I know is that I think that year in particular was like, so Michael Schumacher was he was the guy. He was the one that won all the championships, and in the 90s was like a big part of his era. And I think that was a bit of an upset because I remember watching something on Netflix where it was a documentary about him, and there was this like huge crash where I think this was the year, but those two I think crashed and he drove on like 3 wheels for part of a race in the rain. It was insane. Now anybody that does know F1, and if I'm wrong, I'm very sorry.
It does say he won by 39 points from Michael Schumacher, so
there you go. Okay.
I think you're in the right ballpark. Anytime these come up on the on this day type sites or anything, or even on Wikipedia when I'm looking at the different sites I look at, I always include it. Just I don't know why. The Dow Jones crashed 554.26 points to close at 7,161.15, 10th largest percentage decline in the index since 1915. Oh my God!
I lost a lot of money that day. Let me tell you.
Those were numbers.
Yeah.
That's one to some people. They're like really fired up, but it's probably
some deep feelings.
I don't know if anyone listening. Extreme G is a fast-paced sci-fi racing game in which up to 4 players race Tron-like bikes through courses on different planets. These roller coaster-like courses feature jumps, steep drops, tight curves, and upside-down loops. Each bike is equipped with 3 nitro speed boosts, a shield, and a primary weapon which can be fired at other racers to slow them down. There are also tons of pickups like proximity mines, various types of missiles, and an ion side blast, which can be used to slow the other racers. The single-player mode contains a practice mode, time trials, and a shoot-'em-up mode. Multiplayer includes head-to-head, cup challenge, battle arena, and flag game. 1 or 2 players can participate in the Extreme Contest, a series of races in which players must score a certain number of points to qualify for the next race. Complete the 3 levels of Extreme Contest to unlock all the courses and become the best racer in the galaxy.
You said that one was easy to write.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing?
No,
Okay.
There's lots of material for me to write about.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We have with some like there, especially with the fighting games we've covered we've talked about this a lot. Or like the sports. Yeah, it's football.
What? Yeah, football. I combined them because I was like, I feel like I'm going to say the same thing.
They got playbooks.
Yeah.
You'll really feel like you're in a quarterback club.
Hey. Yeah. I think just looking at that and like that you're able to do it, even though make it sound distinct and interesting, even though we've covered a handful of racing games compared to like the 8th fighting game we've covered or whatever. At least says something about this game.
You guys have done a lot of fighting games somehow already. It is strange, but I guess that there was a lot at that time.
That was the era for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's kind of front loaded. I feel like there's still fighting games, but I don't like look in the future and I'm not like, oh man, we're gonna have to do
kind of getting out of that.
Oh no, there's a lot less as time goes on. I feel like 96 and 97 was like they were really it was a lot.
Okay, so Extreme G. So Jameson, as we kind of mentioned on your show, you did a whole episode, about the music in Extreme G and its sequel. But for you, it seemed like this was like a pretty important game to you. Like, what's your personal backstory with this game?
On my show, I try to cover like the soundtracks for each, and I get into a little bit of the background, which I'm sure we'll cover a lot on here. But the music was awesome. This game like kind of got to me in a couple of ways when I was a kid. One, it was a racing game that was like unlike anything I had seen. It was really, really cool because it was all 3D, and the courses, like, like if you grew up and you played any Super Nintendo games as a kid, like everything was just flat. Like F-Zero was fast, but it was all flat in that Mode 7 kind of graphic style. And you had Wipeout on the PlayStation, which was also 3D, but it was just like hills and some curves. Extreme G did some real wild stuff, and I think the first time I ever played it, like I convinced my parents to like rent it from Blockbuster. When sometimes we get to rent games because like like you said, buying games back then was super expensive. They were like $60 or $70, but which in today's money would be like $120 or $130, which is crazy. Oh, yeah. So renting was a lot easier. And with much begging, I got a copy of Extreme G that we rented, and like from the get-go, it starts off with an amazing, like, just trance soundtrack that was like nothing like my little kid mind had ever heard before. And it was these crazy bikes that like you shot at things. This wasn't like Mario Kart where you're shooting like cartoon turtle shells and stuff. It was like you had like cool futuristic missiles, and like there was a warp attack that you could like send people back on the course, or there was nitros that you could go like 400 miles an hour and you'd loop through these giant circles, and it was like this gritty dystopic futuristic city and stuff. Everything about it was like it felt cooler than any racing game I had played before that. So like for me, it was really, really awesome, and the soundtrack stayed with me just because it's still really awesome to listen to after all this time.
Yeah, it is pretty banging. And now that you say that, I feel like it is like a perfect like rental sort of game. I don't even mean that in a bad way, but like where you could play these for like a long sitting and be done with the game in like a weekend, and it
was a perfect weekend type of game. Yeah. For sure. I mean, it had like multiplayer modes and you could play with other people, but like I think you could get through the majority of it if you got good enough at the game in a weekend and like 2-day rental or whatever.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about some of the multiplayer because that was primarily what we did, which is always a plus for our show because we like to play games together. But Dre, how about you? You said you were a little bit more foggy on the game, but it sounds like you played this back in the day.
I did. We rented it, and I don't remember when. I want to say like early 98, probably not too long. What were we talking about? October 97? Yeah, not too long after it came out. Here's the thing, though. Jameson mentioned Wipeout. Everything he just said about Extreme G, that's the way I felt about Wipeout. Like I had
Right.
a PlayStation when the thing got delayed, when the N64 got delayed, it did not come in 1995 as the machine promised it would. I was like, I gotta get this PlayStation. This thing looks rad. Wipeout was it for me, man. So
Yeah.
like when Extreme G came along, like damn near over 2 years later, it was really hard for me to like be like, okay, this is like I had already seen that, right? The thing that Extreme G had, though, that Wipeout doesn't had, is also something you mentioned, was that the courses were very roller coastery. They're very, you're going through these loop-de-loops and you're going down a thing extreme, then up extreme, because it's Extreme G, you got to be extreme, right? And then like, you know, it was these very like, it was these very dynamic like roller coaster vibes, which I did enjoy more than Wipeout. But as far as aesthetic goes, like, man, like Wipeout had music I was actually listening to, like Orbital and Chemical Brothers and Crystal Method, right? That they added to the US version because the Crystal Method are the only Americans doing that shit. But like it was like that was it to me. That made that direct to connection. This is the music I'm actually buying on these compact discs. It's in the game. Holy shit. Right? Extreme G
Totally.
didn't
Yeah.
have that. With that said, the music in Extreme G is great. It's really,
Oh, yeah.
really great. You know, I'm not trying to diss. It's just that like I when it came to like futuristic racing experiences in lieu of, you know, F-Zero still being like a year out, F-Zero X, you know, it was Wipeout for me. But Extreme G, it's like you said, it's a perfect rental. It's a perfect rental game. There's not a whole lot of meat on that bones, and I guess there doesn't really have to be. So yeah, I really liked Extreme G, but it wasn't like, you know, one of my favorite N64 games or anything. It was just something I liked, you know?
For sure. Yeah, and I could definitely see that, especially if at the time you had both PlayStation, or if you had both options available. I could see how you'd look at Wipeout and be like, "Oh, this is the one I would want to go for." But I think I think it on the N64 itself, especially, McKenna, we've been covering it chronologically, like it's pretty unique from all the games we've covered so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely like I mean, there's some we've covered where I'm like, I don't think I need to play this game when I've already played this game, whereas like this feels like it does have like a specific sort of area lane that it can fit in. But I guess you played it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about it?
I liked it a lot. I think after playing like one race, I was like, I think this is the racing game other than like Mario Kart that I've enjoyed the most that we've played so far.
I could see it. Yeah, I'd probably agree.
It feels like maybe more casual than some of the other ones, like easier to get into, but it does have the challenge of the speed and just like navigating the tracks and the weapons.
Yeah.
I did feel it was more similar to Mario Kart in some ways, like the pickups than the other games. Kind of more accessible, but also just fun to go through the courses, have that music and that sci-fi setting. Really cool vibe.
I don't think there was any other racing games that were on the Nintendo 64 at that point that weren't like cars too.
Yeah.
Like, everything was really realistic.
Yeah, I was thinking of like Top Gear and like other stuff that's like cars, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. The only other thing I can think about, and it's almost different, but Wave Race is really like the only game that's like got a different sort of feel to it, or like, you know, vibe in that regard. So yeah, I felt similar too when I played up. Obviously, it reminded me of F-Zero and Wipeout, but you know, just I feel like it kind of I think it kind of planted its flag on the N64. It got there kind of early on that sort of vibe, so I'm okay with it. It didn't feel like too derivative or anything necessarily, but there's a lot of stuff where you're like, yeah, I know this is like exactly this vibe, like that you've kind of seen in something like Wipeout or something like that. I love that soundtrack. It's the only other thing that compares to on the library that we've covered is Tetrasphere, which the composer of that soundtrack straight up said like some, at least about one of the songs, this I really wanted to sound like a Prodigy song, so they named it something as like reference to that. But this was going for almost a similar, I mean, there's slightly differences, but it's got really that sort of vibe where you just kind of get in a trance and get in the zone and you're going on the loop-de-loops, and it's a really good feeling.
Yeah, and like I said, that was the sound of the mid to late 90s, and that was my shit. That was the music I loved the most at the time. So of course, I still do like that stuff, that era. So Extreme G, for sure. The music is insane. I also want to second what McKenna said about accessibility, because I think that is absolutely true. Extreme G is a much less technical game than its peers. Think about like in Wipeout, when you hit a wall bump, you are going so slow all of a sudden, like your speed drops like a rock. Or F-Zero, where you really got to watch that health, and if you go careening off an edge in F-Zero, you're done. It's game over, right? Like those games are pretty unforgiving, particularly F-Zero X, since we're talking about N64. You want to talk about hard? Holy shit, right? But Extreme G, it feels like you're more glued to the track. Yeah, you can like fall off a ramp or something, but there's not a whole lot of penalty for it. They just kind of like place you back on. And I think that's good, because like if we are considering Extreme G like a vibes game, for lack of a better term, then like, that's the correct vibes, right? You don't want to be challenged by Extreme G. You just want to like see the cool roller coaster, right? Or at least that's how I think of it.
Yeah, you want to go fast. That's the idea.
Yeah, and it lets you do that.
I think there were only a handful of courses where you could fall off the left or right. Everything else was like maybe missing a jump or something like that. But you were on the track. You kind of had to like bumper lanes to some degree.
Right.
Yeah, you definitely, and you would slow down if you hit them, but like it especially in like the easier difficulties, it wasn't like a massive hindrance. But you could fall off some ledges. There's a notorious...
there's one course where...
There's a handful of them.
I think I've gotten the hang of it now, but it's just like, it gets very twisty, and there are several places where you can fall off. And that was messing me up a few times.
Yeah.
With the fire and lava everywhere? Holy crap.
Oh god, that one is like
that was another level.
Yeah.
So I got through that one, but the way to do it was to get, like if you're doing the extreme contest, to get higher places than the other ones, and then just be like, whatever, I'll get 5th on this one and drive slow.
I accepted 3rd. Yeah, I went with that.
Yeah, I feel like I think I split the difference between you guys. I think I got a 4th, I think, on that one. Yeah, that's one of those courses where it's like total, like I call it the YOLO boost. Like, okay, am I going to use nitro here or not? I'm going to probably go careening off the edge, but fuck it. Like I'm gonna go for it, and then sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but that's what makes it fun, right? No, that's like the only course where you can really like get really off of
really
it.
Messed up on. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A lot of the course designs are really, really smart in this, where it spells out to you visually that this is the time to use a nitro boost.
Mm-hmm.
That course did not. That course really kind of left it up for interpretation, so that's what made that one so hard.
There's some like stretches, but it's still very risky, so sometimes I'm like, maybe I just won't.
I think that was the first course where I went through like one of the warp items.
Oh yeah.
So it sent me back, and I was just like, what is happening? Oh god, this is not good. Like I'm already doing this to myself. I don't need the item to do it.
To the game's credit, though, we were playing that one. We were trading off with our friends and trying to beat it like together. We were all like taking turns. And when we got to that one, it was like hysterical because we were just like, we would like you get put back on the course, someone bumps you, and you start driving off the course again.
Way off.
Yep.
Oh, it was a nightmare. But to the game's credit, and we were talking about the accessibility, like I like that it has the 3 different in the extreme contest, like the 3 different types of races where they have more tracks, and then within them the difficulty settings, because I felt like that fire one that's hard comes up only on that final one. And
Right.
I feel like, yeah, there's some trickier courses even in the first set of levels, but I feel like it felt like appropriate. Like it got much tougher, like even on the easy difficulty once you added in all the tracks, because some would just be like really hard.
Yeah, it almost felt like they were using the Mario Kart philosophy up to that point where it's like, Mushroom Cup has these forms, Flower Cup has these, and it's like, okay, this one has the Bowser's Castle, this one has the Ghost House, right? Like they're trying to like kind of ramp up that quote unquote difficulty, even though, it's Mario Kart. I mean, how hard are they really going to be? But still more advanced, I guess you could say, more twists and turns and less basic. I kind of
More
feel
different
like
side
Extreme G.
shortcuts and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I feel like Extreme G kind of took from that as well.
And in terms of the courses, I don't know how you felt, but like it felt like there was like a good amount of them, and like the way those 3 different modes are, like it's a good way to like keep you playing through but not feel repetitive, because I feel like some of the other racers we'd play would only have a few courses, and they'd come up with different ways to like get you to keep playing them, and some were more successful than others, and I felt like this one had a good like line, like where it had like a decent amount of tracks, and then like they reused them pretty appropriately like in that mode.
Yeah, I never felt like I was playing one in particular a ton, and even when I was going back to them, like they also have kind of branching paths occasionally, so it'd be like, oh, let's go this way this time, and like, oh, there's a boost on this side.
This is clearly the better way. Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't like where they go for the reverse course version to pad it out. It was like they were thematic for each kind of like section, but it felt like they existed all in that same kind of like world in a way. Like the mines ones, all like color and track wise, they all felt very similar design wise, but they all felt really unique, which was really cool too.
Yeah, there's some cool vibes in the tracks. I mean, we were just witnessing some.
Yeah, you were just playing through the last few and the highest difficulty.
Not the highest
contest.
Difficulty, but
not difficult, the highest level.
I was on easy. Let's not get it twisted. I want everyone to know I was on easy.
There's that one where you're like driving through and the fog color changed a couple times.
It was like purple.
Yeah.
It really gave me. It felt like we were in the Lost Land from Turok, which I think is appropriate because is I think Acclaim.
Yeah, there's also the like.
Did this one.
Can we please do our fog section now? Can we please talk about the fog? Because
we're kind of compliment sandwich with the vibes, okay?
Yeah, because it's vibes all right, because it's like, man, I mean, I'm sure you guys remember all the magazines called the game Extreme Fog. Like that was its nickname. Like everyone called it that. It was crazy. And you know what? It's warranted. Here's the thing though. And
I'll give it that. Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. It's the fog doesn't actually obscure the action, because like the draw distance is like fine, right? You can see what's going on. It's just that like it obscures the actual world. You don't get to see like, you're driving through the cityscape and it's just like, here is all this fog. Like you could see some buildings kind of peeking out here and there, but it's like, I think that's what it really takes away from, not like the readability of the race necessarily, just like, can I see this cool future city? No, I can't, because fog, and look, Wipeout did it in a way where it's like, yeah, the track itself is very like, you could see it being built in front of you, right? But the background details, they use like bitmaps and other 2D stuff to like make the world so you could really see it. This took the approach of doing everything in 3D, so guess what, right? So, I mean, I guess it's an approach, but fuck, I really, like it is a problem, but I don't think anyone should go like, read those old magazines and be like, well, this must be trash. You can't see anything. No, the game's pretty playable. Just fog. What an interesting choice, I guess.
The distance off course it gets invisible pretty fast. It disappears. It's just also why I think there's a lot of those courses that were at night or in the mines, because they could limit and make that world a little smaller. There's ways to hide it. I feel like they got pretty creative with that.
When you're like in a cool futuristic tube, it's like, whoa, this is cool. But yeah, when you're in the ones where it's like more sky, it does have that feeling for sure.
I remember when Extreme G2 came out, everyone, the very first lines of all the reviews are like, yes, they pushed back the fog layer. That is, they did. I promise. It's still there, but it's not, it's farther back now. But yeah, man, that was its claim to fame. I feel like if anyone's my age and they have never actually played this game, that's what they know about it.
Well, you know, it's fair, but I think it's obviously the game's worth playing. So I hope people, you know, now that's on NSO, I'm sure a lot of people have tried it out, which is cool. But I can see if you're looking at screenshots, maybe in 1997 of that and Wipeout, I could see you're probably like, well, this one looks way sicker, you know, and it's got the real soundtrack. Yeah. The real quote unquote real,
on a CD-ROM, baby.
Yeah, CD quality audio. Yeah.
It was so, I mean, look, and I appreciate both these games. I think it's clear. I appreciate both these games for almost completely different reasons. I mean, yeah, they're similar, and obviously one is inspired by the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I hope people don't like just dismiss it because they heard about the fog. It's a very playable game. You know, it's funny though. I'm sure if they turned that off, it wouldn't look right. You know how like the night dive ports of like Turok, they let you turn off the fog and it looks fucked up. You can't do that. Just keep the fog. That's how it's supposed to look. You know,
it's part of the vibes.
Yeah. You got to have the fog, and the fog is worse in Turok. It is.
Yeah, and Turok, like you're getting shot by stuff. At least when you're racing, you can see the track in this game.
Yeah.
So yeah, Acclaim, they're the masters of fog. That should have been their like subheading. And I can at least in Turok, I only recently, you know, beat the game for the first time in my life, relatively speaking. But now I'll, you know, go to the grave defending it. But that's one where I feel like I can more be like, come on, you're in the jungle, the fog, it's a vibe. But sometimes in Extreme G, it's cool. Like
colorful fog.
They use the Turok move of like, oh, we just make the fog a different color, and now it's cool fog.
Atmospheric.
But yeah,
it's poisonous gas.
Yeah, it's poison gas.
Yeah. Oh, that's why we have to be in our There's a weird lore to the game, right?
Oh yeah.
The bikes are being like controlled remotely.
Yes.
Like the racers are on their home planet, like plugging in or whatever. It's a little meta because it's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They say like
those are one of those things where you read the manual, you read the story, it's like, whoa, what, huh? You know,
you just play the game,
plot and universe building stuff to this like racing game in 1997. Like, awesome, sign me up.
And then you play it, and it's just like, you won the race. Good job.
The presentation in this game, man. Oh,
that's what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
That's good transition. Yeah, we can do that.
We'll do the bad vibes, part of the vibe section, because overall the vibes are very good. But there was definitely, I'll say the one thing with just the presentation of the game that really got to me was just that the tracks like aren't named, and when you're like picking them in multiplayer or single player, it's just little thumbnails, and you can, once you know them, you can kind of pick them out. But like, I wish they would just call this one like city and this one like mine, you know, or whatever.
Yes, I will pick desert. Like, they didn't even try to give them name. Like, I don't know why. That's so weird. It's because I went to time trial first to get my handle on the controls, because I was mostly playing on Nintendo Switch Online, and a Nintendo Switch Pro controller is very different from a Nintendo 64 controller, so there's a bit of a learning curve. I got the handle on it, but I was just like, wait, there's just 4 pictures of stuff? Like, we don't have names? I didn't remember this back in the day. That's the thing, right? And that's also something I probably subconsciously didn't think about back in the day. The presentational aspect of it compared to like Wipeout in that regard was really lacking. You know, it almost felt like they didn't. This might sound kind of rude. It almost feels a little unfinished in that regard, right? Like, I mean, it's almost like they didn't even have time. This is like, no, we got to get this out now or something. Sure. I don't know. It just it feels a little beta in that regard. It's not a terrible thing. It just doesn't. The lack of polish is evident though in that aspect.
Yeah, you can overcome it, but it's like it just leaves you scratching your head a little bit. But
Especially for a game that like kind of builds itself. Well, it has, like you said, it has its own like world building concept and plot and everything like that. And then it's the future, the far future, and these crazy fast bikes, and like the interface design is like straight out of like a DVD menu.
Yeah, that's
so weird. A 1997 DVD menu, mind you, from that era. Not even when we got good at it, like in the 2000s.
yeah, when it was badass.
Yeah.
That's why I like, especially like we're playing, because we've played like comparatively to some of the other racing games we've played, or even just some of the other games we played. Like the menus are like fairly decent, like. You know, not flashy, but like they get the job done. And so, like, I don't know. Like I said, compared to some of the other ones where it's like really, like, they feel like really bare bones, really basic. Like this one, I guess I was just, maybe it's not the menus and the presentation, but more like I found myself going like, oh, look at all this stuff we can do. And so it made it like, whatever, there's a little racing helmet for this icon. It's not that cool, but it was easy to get over, you know, because the game was fun.
I wish there was more. I wish there was like at least like a few voice clips. I feel like that would have gone a long way. 3, 2, 1, go. Anything, or like when you do pickups, missile, shockwave, something like that. Like I just feel like, I don't know. I get it. It's Nintendo 64. Space is precious. At the same time, like just a few little clips, I think would have gone a really long way, I think. I don't know.
I can see
I wish
that,
for the most. Just a few voice clips.
To push it over the edge, yeah.
Even
like when you win a cup, like compared to, I posted a video of one of the other racing games, one of the ones with only 3 courses, I forgot which one, but when you win, like your car rolls up and there's a trophy and some confetti and like a passenger plane flies overhead and they're like, good job. It's like this one, they're like, enter your name as Roller.
And you just like fly into white space. The thing ends and the bikes just go boom, just fly into it, like some sort of existence, and then it's like enter your name.
Because it like it shows you your bike and it's like, oh, check out this cool 3D render of your bike, and then this like starts elevating into the sky. Like there's no triumphant music. There's no like sparkle effects. There's just, your bike just starts floating up, and then text replaces at the bottom with whatever like cheat code they give you based on whatever your result was usually.
I love doing games like that. By the way, I really enjoyed that. Like when you beat a game on normal, it's like to access hard mode, put in this code or something. I miss that from old games. So I was happy to see like, oh yes, I will try the code Roller. Thank you.
Some of those were cool. Some of those codes were cool, like the wireframe mode. I thought was sick.
Yeah, that was really cool. I love the.
I feel like that improves the frame rate when you do that.
Yeah, actually, I played it for a little bit and I was like, I think I'm doing better.
Because you know, it targets 30. It doesn't always get there. I mean, it's mostly fine, but like, you know, it is what it is, I guess. It's just in contrast to, again, Wipeout. That was a very smooth, like rock solid 30, you know, versus like this is can get a little choppier, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not a game where I would say the frame rate sucks, which I can say about a lot of Nintendo 64 games. So yeah, this one mostly holds up.
Yeah, I think there was part of a reason that happened. Well, I could be wrong, but I know that the Nintendo 64 doesn't have a dedicated sound chip, so this may play into your sound effects thing. And so the CPU has to do the graphics and the sound. And I feel like maybe they chose the awesome soundtrack over a lot of those extras because it would also then cause in lag performance and stuff like that too, since the CPU is doing all of it at the time.
Yep, and that is exactly the problem. That's why there's like, you can count the Nintendo 64 games that run at 60 frames a second on one hand. What are they, F-Zero X? Like, Smash 64, kinda, mostly, right? Like you get like less than 5. That's the reason why they can't achieve that, because the sound has to take up the CPU as well. And I'm not saying that like Extreme G would have gotten to 60 if it like, you know, had a dedicated sound chip. But yeah, that is a big problem for Nintendo 64. So yeah, that you are correct.
There was one game that we played that like bragged about it being
Oh.
60 FPS. Do you remember what it was? It was one of the fighting games, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it like
It was.
Dark
one?
Rift?
I think it was Dark
Maybe.
Rift.
Yeah.
That's right,
Dark Rift 60? Is
I
it
think
really?
so.
Wow. See, I don't
It was
I don't
pretty
remember.
smooth. It
Wow,
wasn't
okay.
fun, but
No,
Yeah.
no. But...
And the
No,
vibes
no.
were not that good. So I don't know what they achieved. Yeah.
Well, it's a
That's
sequel
one of
to Criticom, which is maybe the worst video game I've ever played. Easily the worst fighting game I've ever played on PS1
That's what
or
people
any
keep
other
telling
system.
us, and now I kind of want to play it. Just
Oh,
to
you should.
see.
It's hilariously
okay,
bad.
cool.
You should. It's so bad it's good for like a few minutes. There's like fun. The CG, you will get a kick out of it. It is fun. I don't know if you stream the. Oh yeah, you do stream. You do flashbacks.
Mhm.
Well, you do use N64 stuff. If you feel
We'll
like
do
doing
whatever.
a PS1 game sometime, definitely play Criticom. It is hilarious.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll do that, and we'll do Wipeout, which will be fun.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Um,
you should play Wipeout.
Wipeout is definitely cool.
But
Mhm.
the vibes are, I think, overall pretty cool in the game, if
Mhm.
lacking in a few areas. And that bonus stuff was cool. Also, I should throw in getting that bonus car or bike
Mhm.
after
Oh,
you
yeah?
beat it is cool too. That Roach one, I was
Roach.
just playing as
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
so good. But
If you get really good, you can unlock Neon. I don't know if I
Ooh.
was ever that good though. But Neon is supposedly like the bike that was created by the guy who created the interface for the whatever the story lore is. But Neon is like the ultimate bike in
Oh.
the game.
okay, I like some of the lore.
It's
I
weird.
I didn't find much about. It sounded like though to what Dre was saying, like like maybe there was some type of limit to their time or resources or something. I don't know much
Mhm.
about the development of this game. I tried to look up stuff about it, but I didn't get a lot about it. It feels like kind of a, I don't know, like a sort of a hidden gem on maybe not a gem. I don't know. It was a really good game, but like I'd never even really heard about it until
Mhm.
Jameson, probably your show was the first time I heard about it, or like
Oh, really?
maybe
Okay.
making
Alright.
a list of games to cover. Yeah, it was never on my, or if it was, I couldn't say. We were playing with my brother, my younger brother, and he was like, "This seems familiar. Like maybe we rented it," but I couldn't tell if that was a thing of like we've just absorbed that type of vibe through
Mhm.
video games, like in that time period, that it just felt familiar, So
I guess I'll
It's
just never forget it because I've just never seen every single publication band together to call a game Extreme Fog. I just never. That's just so funny to me still to this day that just everyone jumped on the exact same thing. It's just, and it deserved it. But I mean, like, not in a bad. I mean, it doesn't like again, it doesn't make the game bad or anything. It's just nobody had seen anything like that. And yeah, like I think Turok had come out before this, and we were used to the
Yes.
fog. But again, it's just that's its calling card. This is kind of random, but I feel like it's weird that they let you turn weapons off in the options. I don't know why
Yeah.
anyone would want to play that way. It just seems like, I don't know, do you want to play Mario Kart without pickups? I don't know. I just feel like that's so intrinsic to the gameplay. I don't get it. I'm sure some people want to though, but not me.
yeah,
I think we did it when we were just like learning, or like maybe we did it once through just to get the feel of
Like how to
racing,
actually
and then we turned it
race.
back on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is there a
'Cause it's-
practice mode? Maybe
There
We
is a
might have done
practice
that.
mode.
There is a practice mode.
It might have been in that too. I don't know. That is weird.
But
I mean, I
want to
guess
know what each weapon does. You know what I mean? If I'm practicing, I want to know. Like, oh, you know
Oh,
what?
yeah.
Actually, that is something that I think is really cool about the game. And yeah, they don't have like like I said, I would have preferred some weapon callouts, like heat-seeking missile or whatever. But it is cool that like you understand what weapon you got by the contraption that attaches to your like vehicle. It's like, oh, I got that one. I actually think that's really cool because you could like visibly see. It's not like a box like Mario Kart. You have 3 shells where I guess you could see them rotating around you. But even if you can't, it's like you can see the weapon that you have, and you oh, I got the winged one. That means it does this. I think that's kind of fun, personally.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
It
it
had
was
a
pretty
cool
smart.
look.
They had a lot of smart design elements in the game. And I think that you're right. That was one of them. Like, you could tell you had the mortar shells because it looked like a tub that would shoot them out the back, or you knew you had forward firing rockets because the icon was an F and they went over top and they looked like they were pointing forward. But if you had rear fire rockets, it's the same thing, but you saw the front of them facing you, so you knew you could shoot them backwards. Like, there were smart things that just kind of visually told you the answer versus having to spell it out, which I thought was clever.
Yeah.
You were just saying you avoided which one was it? The cannon type looking
there's
thing?
like one that shoots stuff like directly in front of you, which is only
That's
only
the
useful
mortar.
if you have someone right in front of
It's
you.
the
And
worst.
I was like,
Okay, we hate the mortar.
I was like, oh
Okay.
god, I have
That
to
was the worst
avoid
one.
hitting myself.
I guess
I
I'm the
definitely
mortar
blasted
liker on this
myself a
show.
couple
I'm the
times.
mortar
You like
liker. If you ever wonder who likes that weapon, it's me. You found them.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
I like the sideways like pod racing looking one.
Yeah, that was.
Oh, they
pretty
made
sick.
like the wall that you could. Yeah, that one was cool.
There
I
is
thought
like
the proximity mine or whatever, you could pop it down.
oh,
My
yeah.
strategy was always like, whenever there was a split in the path, was to wait for it and put it down right there, because at least I could take out the guy that was behind me. That was always that's how I got it
So
first
good.
quite a few times.
There's sort of with some of them like a risk reward thing, because like if you blow someone up like right in front of you, you get like blown up a little bit by it, and I like definitely have screwed myself over a few times, being like, oh, I'm gonna. It's not like Mario Kart. Like Mario Kart, they're not. There's like maybe that bomb thing, but they're not gonna give you much
about
to
it.
like damage yourself with unless you go around and run into your thing you dropped on the last
Your
post.
own,
This
yeah,
one,
yeah.
Banana, green shell.
I'd have my rockets, and it would be like. I'd be like really nervous to use them sometimes. So
You had to be really strategic to line some of that stuff up.
That is one thing I do like more than Wipeout. I do like they did steal the shockwave thing from Wipeout, where it has like the thing goes across the track. Other than that, I do think the weapon stuff is better in Extreme G. That is one advantage I do see over it if we're going to directly compare that way, for sure.
That big shockwave thing was like the blue shell of this game, though.
Yeah.
when we were playing with our friends, we would that was just what we would call it. Is okay.
Yeah.
I'm sending a blue shell. Look out! Like when we're playing together.
Yeah, because it messed up your controls and it went on for way too long.
Yeah.
was
Oh
disastrous.
yes,
It's pretty devastating.
and it could hit like everyone, which like that could be pretty bad if you're like trying so hard even to get up to like first place and you get hit with one of those. Like, well, I guess at least first place is getting hit with it, but you're often struggling yourself. And I had it take like where I lose control on that fire level, and I just go straight off the side into the lava.
Unfair.
It's like, oh,
It's unfair.
Yeah.
unfair. Yeah, BS. I did.
Yeah,
like,
I think there was one time I had it. You could hear it coming because there was audio clues, which was cool. So I knew I had a straightaway, and I hit the nitrous, and I think I stayed just ahead of it. So I wasted all of my nitrous on that one just to get far enough ahead of it.
oh,
I didn't even know
that's
that was
so
possible.
cool.
I don't think I
It
tried
worked for me
that.
one time. Yeah.
Wow.
I loved the nitrous in this. I know there's a lot of games that have that sort of thing, but you already
It
are
felt
going
cool.
so fast in this, and then when you hit that and like you're like basically like braking, like there's times where I'm just like floating around in space for a while, and I'm like,
Because you like hit the jump and you're just
The
airborne.
walls.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. You get that's I think besides the track design, obviously the best thing about the game, that is the second best thing about the game, the sense of speed. You really
Sure.
get that in this game, and there's a lot of game. Like I said, I think only F-Zero X really compares on the system, or I guess maybe Extreme G2, where you really feel that. And it's like I was saying up top about other games like F-Zero or Wipeout being a lot more technical. You can go really fast in Wipeout, but you better be fucking good. You cannot bump into those walls at all. You are taking a huge speed bump. So to go fast in that game, you got to really earn it. You don't have to earn it in Extreme G, which makes it just fun. You don't. This is a game where it's like they want you to go fast. They want you to experience that roller coaster, and I think that's great. And they give you the sense of speed to do that with as well. You have all the right trackside details whizzing by you and stuff, and I think that's the sense of speed in Extreme G is pretty top notch, I would say.
and they'll
For sure.
they'll like they'll incentivize you a little bit if you want to push it further, you can. Like some of the carts or the bikes, you could go much faster, or you could even put in there's like one of the cheat codes made you go like ridiculously fast. I couldn't even like, especially when I used the nitrous, it was insane. So you can like push the difficulty and push the speed if you want, but I like the base mode, like makes it so we could play with basically anyone, and it was a good time.
I tried, and I played it all the way up to like Meltdown on Novice, I think. But the fastest speed I got was 422 miles an hour. I specifically wrote it down because I wanted to see if you guys were paying attention at all to see how fast you saw you were going.
Oh no, I didn't.
We got to the 400s. I can tell you that much. No way.
Yeah, it was fast. So. I think the max is probably 5, but I never got there before I crashed into a wall or something.
I definitely remember a time using the nitro and also driving over a speed boost and just going insanely fast. Oh my god. This is awesome. I don't know, I didn't pay attention to what speed I was going though.
Because you're trying not to crash. It was also the other thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I once looked at this. I was just like, I'm going fast. That's all I know.
No, I like to see that stuff because I mean I wasn't trying to get like super great at the game, but I like to see the speed in which I'm taking a corner or something. It's like, oh, maybe I should try 140 next time, or maybe I should, whatever, like stuff like that. So I just intrinsically look. Maybe it's all my Sega Rally stuff where I really hone in on that stuff. So I'm just like trained to do it now in any game or something. But yeah, about the only game where I don't care about my speed is Mario Kart. It's like the only time I don't look. I don't even think they tell you in most games. So some games they do. I think most games they don't. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the items are cool, and when you mention Mario Kart, it makes you think like, I feel like in the Mario Kart, and obviously it's hard to compare, but I feel like they kind of handle the balance of items a little bit better. Like I found there would be times where, like after the start of the race, like there'd be different blocks of people racing, and it was like, these people are never going to catch up to these people. And so there would be times where I'd be in first, and I would just be like from the start, and I would just be lonely, and I'm not that good. But then there'd be other times where I'm in second, and it's still pretty early, and like first place is unattainable, and there's like not many options like item wise to like really even it. I mean, I guess I could just get better at racing, but I mean, it's not like it was difficult, but sometimes there would just be a wide gap, and it's like you can't really do anything.
I think the problem is that there's no speed up. I think there's one weapon, the pickup that you can get that does give you a speed boost. I think, if I'm not completely mistaken. But that's it. Like in Mario Kart, you have a lot more. You have Starman, or you have stuff like that where you can really like get like a good boost ahead, and you can't really be slowed down. The Extreme G doesn't really have that. It's just really the weapons. So it's just kind of. I mean. It's not that it's bad that it doesn't have that. It's just, I guess, it's just a different focus.
I feel like I noticed too, some courses would have like different items in certain spots. Like it would be kind of, I don't know if this is true, but it seems like, oh, this one is like in this spot on this course more often. I never really looked into that, but I feel like that's true. So I'm just going based on that. I don't know if
there was a lot of strategy to it, because there'd be times you'd be in first place by a mile and you'd still be picking up like heat-seeking missiles. Like, who am I going to use them on?
There was definitely like
that's
not
another
much
thing
of like
Mario Kart does, is that they weight the items. You're not going to get a Starman or something in first place, right? They don't. Doesn't play that. Well, Super Mario Kart does, because that game doesn't give a fuck. But the other ones they try to weight it more so you can't get like really good stuff in first place. It would be so messed up if like in Mario Kart 8, if you could get the 8 like in first place or something like that. I mean, come on, right? They don't let you do that. So
the game does kind of, it walks the line between like the items. I feel like give it more of a like a randomness to the game, but you could like, it's still pretty like, if you're better at it, like you're probably gonna, I guess that's true of Mario Kart too, but it feels like there's a less options to you to like overcome if you're like way behind. But it's in big contrast to something like where like if you want to take out people in F-Zero, especially F-Zero X,
oh buddy, you better you better get really good at some really strange mechanics and some really tough mechanics if you really want to knock them out, right? There's no such pickups, right? You can take them out, but you better be really good at it. But yeah, the Extreme G is definitely more casual in that regard, and I appreciate it.
There were actually some pretty cool mechanics in this game too. I don't know if you guys really caught on to it, but I don't know if they really spell it out to you, but you can hold the right trigger button to take tighter turns, which I thought was awesome. Mm-hmm. That helped a lot from trying to stay off walls. But then I noticed too, if you're going like up inclines or down, like if you press a stick up and down, like in the direction you're heading, it actually sticks you to the ground more. Or if you wanted to lift up off of a jump, you could take the jump a little higher by pulling back. There was little things like that that were kind of cool.
I don't know if I noticed that or if I just intuited it, but that's not that. Yeah, that's cool.
I don't feel like they don't spell it out, but it's like those little things that, like, the more you play, I think the more you figure it out.
They definitely don't spell it out, and this is one of those things. Again, I'm going to bitch about it again. Nintendo Switch Online, please, God, let us read the manuals. Please give us a QR code or something. Like, I cannot 100%. Believe that's not a thing on there. Like, because I forgot again. Like that's the way I played it this time, and I just completely forgot because I rented it literally 25 years ago. So like, it just I'm not going to remember stuff like that. And even back then, the little scanned booklet or little makeshift thing you got from Blockbuster Video or whatever was like better. You had something to go off of, right? So yeah, I didn't realize the R turning with R thing till much later.
Yeah,
they sort of have that in like F-Zero, right, where you like you can turn tighter with the buttons, right?
And I think that's
okay.
I think that was like yeah, and I think I was like I got into the groove of it, realizing that it was actually helping me. So I'm like, all right, I got to learn how to do this better. Mostly because it's been so long since I played it. I think it's just the right trigger,
yeah.
So your point about the playing it on Switch Online was interesting. So I actually I have my N64 and I had my Switch, so I played it on both in one day, going back and forth. They've done some really nice graphical enhancements for the Nintendo Switch Online. It looks really clean. Like it was sharp. All the graphics look really good. I was really impressed with that. And then the problem I had was when I played it on Switch, I fumbled my way through the whole experience because I could not train my brain on how to play it.
It's very different.
So hard. From playing it on a Nintendo 64 controller to playing it on my Switch Pro controller, like my brain just took the longest time. I kept like shooting off my nitros when I meant to shoot somebody, or I'd break because I thought it was the down C button and it was supposed to be my nitro. It messed me up big time.
I cannot play Sin and Punishment on Switch. I cannot do it. I gotta get one of those like Switch Nintendo 64 controllers or something. I cannot play that on a Pro controller.
Yeah. So this experience helped me realize that I actually need to acquire one of those.
Yeah, so do I, honestly. I've been wanting to get one anyway, and like I think Extreme G is now pushing me over the edge here, maybe. And then now I can finally play Sin and Punishment because, buddy, I can't do it. It's too much.
That is
we do use your N64 controller,
and it feels right. It feels good.
But cool. If like we're using Joy-Cons, I do a lot of button mapping. Which I did that in Extreme G. Like, it lets you from
that's
like the
nice.
Vehicle select screen, and nice. Because just having it on the joystick, it's like, I might accidentally press down and use my nitro, so I just assigned it to a button.
Yes,
that's the way to do it.
And that made it much nicer.
And you're like, I'll put brake. Who cares where that is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't need to brake.
But you cannot. This has been a reoccurring storyline on the show, is that you still, even with that, cannot fully recreate that analog stick like 1-to-1, and that's been a reoccurring thing. Like some games it's not as big of a deal, like Mario 64, it wasn't that big of a deal, but you'd probably notice it. But like GoldenEye, Mario Kart, it's just like anyone's that where it requires like really more, like a lot more precise like stick movement, it's a little frustrating. And this was definitely that. I was just playing it earlier. I was struggling really bad on a course, and I was like, I don't remember this being this hard. And I'm like, I'm playing with the Joy-Cons, and I grabbed my N64 controller, and it was like Oh, okay, that's all it was.
Yeah, it's
Crazy.
very twitchy. You can get used to it, of course, but like, yeah, it's definitely a different experience. But it just some people may like that very like, I guess it just depends on who you are. But like, yeah, you can tell that those sorts of turn radiuses were made for a Nintendo 64 stick. So
big time. I think another benefit of the NSO, and it's kind of a good benefit of this game, I think, like I said, so far where we are in our library, is you could play it multiplayer with people. And we did that. We did some streams where we played with our friends. We played both just changing who's player one, and then we did some races and some battles and stuff like that. And I think while, there's some things that, like, say, if the only thing you can really compare, say, like battle mode to at the like with what we've covered is like Mario Kart, and definitely it's like it's not quite the same, but just the fact there is like a good amount of things you can do with your friends, and you can do up to 4 players, which I think is really cool. And you can even do the extreme contest with 2 players playing together.
I remember.
Yeah, there's cooperative on that. Like that
cool.
made it shoot to the top for me, like in terms of like how like would I keep playing this, is because it's like one where we can go back and play it together, play with our friends, and like have a decent amount of variety. So while it's a good rental, I feel like it is a good game where you can pick it back up again and play for a little bit. And there's not a lot of this is the only other, I think it's the only other 4-player racing game that we've got on the library so far, other than Mario Kart. Right? Yeah.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm trying
Everything
to think if
else
there's
is-
any others.
There's some 2-player games
for that
which
time
are fun.
period.
We
Yeah.
cruised the
Yeah.
USA, we wave raced, but yeah, not a lot of and then some of the ones we played multiplayer don't even work. Like, right.
Yeah.
Like they just
They feel
completely break
weird.
down. This felt pretty much similar. Like it handled it pretty well, I think. So yeah, great multiplayer in this.
Yeah, that is one aspect of the game I can't speak to. I didn't do it back then, nor did I obviously do it now. So I have no idea what those modes are like. But yeah,
I played them. I played it a little bit at the time, like because I've got sisters, so we would play together, and I remember that being one where we finally all of us could play because it was more than 2, and I remember that being kind of a big deal because it was one of the earlier games that we had on the Nintendo 64. So like I had an excuse. I could convince my parents. I'm like, oh well, we rented it, and I was able to play with my sister, so we should get this one, right?
See, perfect.
Yeah,
Oh,
it worked out.
Inroad.
The battle arena was pretty fun. I think definitely more fun with 4 players than with 2. I think when it was just us, we were just kind of driving around in circles around each other a lot and not able to hit each other. But with the 4-player, we were really beating each other up, and
there's a little bit more chaos that just makes it inherently a little more fun.
yeah, and it's kind of fun because I'll use a different bike in the battle arena than I would for a race. I'd be like, all right, what are the good weapon and shield bikes instead of the speed and acceleration bikes?
Yeah,
that's cool. I was actually going to ask if anybody had a favorite bike for choosing between the 2. That's awesome that you did.
Yeah, that's a good time. We should say favorite bikes.
Yeah, we used Con a lot for the races. I think it's a
Con
good
was my choice.
Beginner bike.
Yeah, the desert bike desert camo looking bike was like, it was easily my favorite.
Any of the ones where it's like you have good acceleration, because I'm bumping that wall. I need to get going.
I need to get going again.
Speed.
Yeah.
I didn't care about the weapon so much, like I'd use it, but it wasn't my favorite necessarily.
That is, those do feel like an afterthought, right? The specific bike weapons where you kind of like, here's this laser, or here's this little Gatling gun. I guess they do something, but not really. I don't know. It doesn't feel like they factor in too much. I'm not saying they shouldn't be there or they're useless. At the same time, it's like, it's kind of just like using your pea shooters in Twisted Metal or something. It's like, yeah, you can kind of shoot them, right? But
definitely was like, if I can shoot him, I will, because I'll probably slow him down. But like, I never felt like, oh, this guy is better than this guy. Like, I was, whether it was a laser or like the little bullet things, it all felt the same to me. I'm sure there's a difference, but it didn't really factor into me.
It was useful for like slowing down somebody in front of you if you don't have anything, if you can actually like hit them. But I think I only used it in those situations because the game's really generous with like the various pickups and stuff, though. So you almost don't need it.
And you'd run out of it, and that would be kind of annoying. That one should just be unlimited. Why not just let people blast away? I don't understand. Jameson, do you have a favorite bike, or you went with the same one as us?
Mine was Khan. Yeah, I like that one. I really wanted the like Grimace just because it had the face on the side of it, like World War II plane looking thing, and it was like bright purple with cool wheels. I didn't like it as much. I wasn't as good. So I stuck with Khan. For the same reasons you said. Just it's faster off the line, and I felt like I could control it better.
Dre, do you have a favorite bike?
I just like the basic bitch, like blue ass, like bike or whatever, like the default. Like I really did. I don't know why, but I just kind of
that's the Mario bike.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think that was my favorite one. Yeah, I like blue.
It was called Rays. Was the
Rays? Okay, yeah. See, I didn't remember the names. Yeah, I was just like, I'm picking Mr. Blue. It's right here.
They all had pretty cool names. I'll give them that. Cool names, cool designs.
Very, very 90s.
This would be a good time just to shout out the Auto Museum 64 that our former guest Leo Burke made. Has the Extreme G bikes in them. So I'll put a link, but you can go look at those close up, and they have really cool designs, and like you can see details that you really, you're not expecting to see in the game and stuff. It's very cool. Sorry. The big, I forgot to mention with the multiplayer, the big issue, I think, really is that you're in these tracks like that are similar to, say, like Mario Kart or something, not even quite as elaborate, but your bikes still relatively go crazy fast. So like the only way to like really try to hit someone is to like drive slower, and it doesn't really feel like built for that, especially when you're one-on-one. It just feels awkward. So I feel like they could have maybe, there's some Mario Kart games, right, where the battle mode is more on a racetrack. Like maybe if they had something like that, where it was like, there's not like laps. Bigger
loop type space. Yeah.
Like
it's not very extreme. It's more just G.
Yeah, I could get down with the G experience. Yeah, all the multiplayer modes were very cool. There's like a tournament mode, so you could play with a bunch of people and do a tournament. The flag game was kind of whatever. There's some strategy to it.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm most curious about. When McKenna said flag game in the I was like, what the hell is that? So please, what do you even do? Is it just literally just like, is it like tag? You get the flag and then you're it or something? Or
that would have been cooler. There's just like flags on the course that you have to drive through, and whoever picks up more wins.
Yes.
Oh.
And there's still laps, and whoever finishes the final lap, like ends the thing. So I guess like maybe there's a strategy of like, oh, let me beat it before they get enough flags. But
I think
interesting.
You lose flags if you do a certain amount of damage or something. I don't know exactly.
I don't even remember. It was that one was pretty underwhelming.
Sounds complicated. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
We did it once, and we're like, okay,
let's just race. We mostly raced.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
Oh, I guess single player even has some unique modes too. Like it's got your time trials, but the shoot 'em up mode was kind of unique. Jameson, did you get to try any of that?
No, I didn't, and I had meant to, but I didn't get around to it. So, what is that mode like?
It's almost like so like F-Zero X Death Race, where you're trying to take out like the 30. It's almost like that, but it's like where you're still on laps. You're playing the 3 laps, but you're trying to kill as many other racers as you can before the 3 laps. So that's basically your high score. Oh, you killed 12 of them this time or something. So you like death. I guess it's not totally like Death Race, because Death Race is like you're trying to kill all 30 or the other 29 racers or something like that. This is more like just see how many you can do in a race, and they kind of just place them in front of you and give you a lot of weapons. So really, it's very cathartic. It's kind of fun. I mean, it's not like the best mode in the world, but I thought it was fun.
I missed out. I should have played that.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
definitely better than flag mode, I would say.
I'm sorry,
Like,
flag mode sucks, actually. I'm kind of disappointed about that.
I could see that being something, like, if they developed that more, that could be like a cool mode, you know, as opposed to, like, maybe they didn't need flag mode. But again, I don't know what went into making it so.
They were probably just, let's just try it, whatever.
Can be hard,
Someone
drop
might
some
like
flags
it.
down, yeah. Yeah, we need more multiplayer options. But all
It's a
around,
Nintendo 64, goddammit. We need as many modes as we can.
I think just in terms of the, like, it's like there's no other racing game quite like it. It's fast paced, so it's distinct from some of the more realistic, let's say, games, or like Wave Race or Mario Kart. It's got 4-player multiplayer that runs well and everything. It wasn't like a nightmare playing with our friends. Other than like our internet connection on NSO, which always makes, I don't know if you've ever, you probably haven't played on NSO, but if you play multiplayer, and like someone's got a bad internet connection, they will like the music is the first thing that takes a hit, basically.
Yes.
And it gets crazy, the like glitching that you'll hear sometimes, like like Mario Kart, it always like scare us. But in this, with this soundtrack, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare, the music. But other than that, which wouldn't happen if you're playing locally, I think it was a pretty, it's like, it has a unique enough and like distinct enough vibe from like the rest of the library so far that I would say like this is one of the, maybe not one of the top 10 games we've played, but like one of the stronger games that we've played so far. One of my favorites we've played, I think.
I really like this game, and whether or not anybody has played it or not, like, I think you're in for a treat, honestly, with this game. It's a really cool game for the time period, and it's still kind of fun to go back to either way, just for the experience of it, and if not, the soundtrack is worthwhile. It's awesome.
For sure.
Just listen to the barSILENCE episode, and
You could.
You know what? I did stop though. I won't lie. I stopped because you were going into Extreme G2, and there were the jungle tracks style, and I was like, "This is sick," but I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready.
Yeah. Dude, yeah, the soundtrack to Extreme G2 is super good, and like that game takes it to another level. So I'm happy to come back if you guys will have me.
Please, yeah, that would be amazing. Dre, how about you? Final thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it's almost I don't know. Like, yeah, I think this game is good. I think what I'm struggling with is like, okay, Flashback 64 is like a chronological show, right? I get it. Like, Wipeout 64 didn't exist yet, or like Extreme G2 didn't exist yet, or F-Zero X didn't exist yet. But now in retrospect, it's almost impossible for me to like separate those games as all being better. Totally, even though this game at the time, especially if you only had a Nintendo 64, this was the absolute best you were going to do. And it's and I'm not even saying that in like a way that it's like, oh well, it's all you got, which is a thing I always like to say about Nintendo 64. In this case, this is actually like a really good game, right? So like I don't know, I think it's good, but it's almost hard to say, yeah, you should go play this when like even just on the same system, there's just like a lot more recommendable racing games. But I don't want to paint this game as bad, because obviously it's not. This is a pretty good game. It's just kind of eclipsed by a lot of the other library, in my opinion.
Yeah,
that's totally
it's still
valid.
Pretty early.
Yeah.
It's still pretty early in the library, which makes sense, because like anything after should be better in theory.
Yeah, that totally makes sense for sure. Like we're almost like intentionally have some blinders on a little bit. Like we're not fully looking forward, but yeah, I can totally appreciate that for sure.
The one thing that you said that made me think about it was, in retrospect or thinking about it chronologically, the last like futuristic racing game I played, because I didn't play Wipeout, was F-Zero on the Super Nintendo. So for me experientially, it was a huge leap into the future, and it felt super awesome. I can see looking back in comparison, it's probably not as much, but at the time, that going chronologically, it was leaps and bounds more sci-fi, more futuristic, and faster than anything else, which made it stand out, I think, at the time the most.
Yeah, I can see, like, I was thinking, like, I enjoyed Turok a lot, and I've had people say, like, well, I haven't played the later ones, 2 and 3, but people are like, oh, that's when they really get good. I don't know if that's true. Don't fact check me, but I'm like, that's what I'm wondering how I'll feel later if I'll look back on it and be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't like have ranked it so highly, but just like for what we've covered so far, it's like excited me, you know. So we'll see. Yeah. Maybe it'll come down in excitement as we go on, but
I don't have any knowledge of these future ones, so this one is pretty high for me. It's got great vibes. I love how it feels like a roller coaster. I feel like this one would be really fun to play on one of those like moving arcade bikes.
Oh,
for sure. Yeah, that would
but
be
like
cool.
The first time I came across one of the drops in the game, I think my stomach actually like went, did the flippy thing, and I was like, whoa,
it's fast.
Yeah,
and it feels like it's a real drop off because like the distance disappears and you're heading in a totally different direction.
You gain like momentum. You get momentum and stuff too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they need to make a roller coaster ride of this game.
There's good.
I'll help kickstart that.
Yeah.
All right.
Y'all ever play the Switch launch game Fast RMX? You ever play that? I feel like that's like a spiritual successor to like Extreme G. If I think of like anything like in recent times that's like that, I feel like it's that game.
I've heard that pitched as like a F-Zero type style game, but
I don't think it's very F-Zero. It's definitely a futuristic racer, obviously. I understand that's where everyone's mind goes, but I don't think it plays like that. I think it plays a lot more Wipeout or Extreme G, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, we need to start carving out a lane for like games that are like, not like F-Zero, not like Wipeout, but that are like Extreme G.
Extreme G likes? Wipe the Souls likes off the mat.
Yeah.
Twist, turn, and burn. 4-player battle mode. Extreme G. Acclaim. Nintendo 64. Extreme G.
We had a great time talking about racing. We had a great time racing, and we've got some more racing in our next episode. It's another 2-pack, but we will be talking about San Francisco Rush, which is a pretty hype game. And we're going to be talking about it alongside Duke Nukem 64.
Oh boy.
Those are very different.
Quite different games, yeah. So we're going to be popping back and forth, play a couple levels of Duke Nukem, do a couple races, It's going to be... I'm actually really looking forward to this because it's... I don't know. I'm excited.
That should be fun.
Yeah. Jameson, thank you so much for coming on. I know we've talked about your show, but tell people about, plug yourself, what to check out and everything.
Thank you for all the glowing comments. You've really made me feel special today. So if anybody else is interested in taking a look and giving it a listen, you can check out my podcast. It's at barsilence.com. It's a video game music podcast. Every month I pick a different game or a composer, and I'll try, or even actually recently I've been doing like series, so a couple games in a series, and try and talk about the backgrounds of those games, talk about some where those composers might have come from or what else they've done, and then give a little background into the music itself. I'm by no means a musician, but I like to consider myself a good music listener. So I kind of like I get to have a little bit of fun listening to music and then kind of arranging them semi-DJ style, I suppose, in some episodes. And other episodes, I get to just play them a little sequentially like it goes throughout the story. So I try and do something different each time. But I love talking about video games and video game music. So if you do too, you can check out my show, barsilence.com. You can find me on pretty much every podcast catcher. And Spotify, not so much lately. They've got some weird rules there about playing music, so my last episode got cut. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But in the future, I could be back there. And in the meanwhile, I would encourage you to find it somewhere else. Or you can find me on social media. It's usually barSILENCE or barSILENCE VGM. And yeah, add me there and tell me if you listen to a show or if you want to talk about future shows or other games you think have awesome soundtracks. I'm always down for it.
Right. Well, yeah, it's a great show. Highly recommend it. Thank you again.
The absolute best.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. And you're here with another. We've had Dre on to talk about music and stuff before, and I think both great. We'll have to do some more maybe episodes with you guys where we just talk about music or soundtracks or whatever. I'd be happy to.
For sure.
Totally down. Absolutely down.
Dre, it's great to have you back again so soon. We really appreciate you coming on. You're a great guest, and we love your show as well too. We should have like a Fine Time, praise session maybe too. I feel like that's
if y'all would come on Fine Time, I would be overjoyed. Do I have to talk about Fine Time again? I think people know, or should I?
Yeah.
I guess I
no,
should.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to invite myself on either. By the way,
it could be somebody's first time.
Yeah, I guess so.
True.
That is something on Fine Time I forget. I forget people haven't been listening the whole time. We always assume, because it's like, yeah, everyone remembers what we said in episode, 7 or whatever, right? Fine Time is just me, Steve, and Kevin, us three friends talking about whatever we've been playing. It could be something brand new like Astrobot. It could be something very old like Extreme G. Doesn't matter what it is. Whatever we are authentically playing, that's what we're going to talk about. We love covering news. We love covering Nintendo Directs and like Gamescom and stuff like that. We love industry stuff. We love playing quiz games. The more we embarrass ourselves with quiz games, the better. And we laugh at each other and it's funny. But yeah, sometimes we do very just like Flashback 64. Sometimes we might talk about a movie, sometimes we might talk about an anime, right? I mean, that does happen occasionally, so it's kind of up in the air. So come have a fine time with us.
Yeah,
you guys are fun on social media too, by the way. That music clip of the day or week or whatever you do, I love that every time. It's always a good choice.
Thank you. Yeah, that's me. I pick all of those. The guy, I'm going to rat them out right now. The guys are useless in helping me pick those. So that is 99% of the time that's something I put up there.
We've said it about your show before, but I think it applies to both of your shows, which is why I like listening to them too, is you listen to them and you're like listening to a show. You know what I mean? You both put a lot of great work into the production and everything, and that's what makes, I don't know, it's just a great listening experience. You're like, ooh, cool music, cool transitions, great vibes, and also great hosts. So keep up the good work.
Thanks, guys.
Well, cool. McKenna, we can get out of here. Do we want to plug anything?
We have a website now.
Yeah, but
tell me more.
Well, we just made one on NeoCities, which is like a make your own website type GeoCities deal. And my brother, who's been on the show, is actually currently taking like these classes where he's like learning about HTML and stuff. So we're like, he's using it as an opportunity to just like, practice, making this basic. You look at it, and I'd like to think it looks like an older website. It's just very simple. Yeah, we're gonna have right now we don't have a like official domain name, but we'll post the link, and then hopefully down the line we'll get like flashback.60. Well, I shouldn't say we're trying to get. Who knows what we're gonna get? But
yeah, so
check out our website.
The best I could get was like Fine Time with a dot in between time, so it's like ti.me, so it's a .me address, but Fine Time, yeah, that's
pretty
the best
clever.
I could
I like
get.
that.
Yeah.
I'd like
also,
I feel like
back in the GeoCities days, I did have a website where I put a bunch of 311 lyrics. That's what I was doing when I was 15.
Hell yeah.
When Extreme G came out, I forget, it could have been Angel Fire. I don't think so. I think it was GeoCities.
You know what that is right there? That's preservation. You were practicing lyric preservation right there.
Yeah, 311 has never been heard of since 1997. I'm glad I preserved it for everybody.
So yeah, we'll have more of that posted soon. We'll probably talk about it more. I guess we'll talk about it more. It's just got links to everything, but I think it looks cool. So check it out. All right, yeah, let's get out of here. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you in Duke Nukem and San Francisco Rush. And of course, we want to give a special thank you to all of our Millennium Star tier patrons. So thank you Darren Hupke, Infection Form, Jeremy Aber, Kiefer, Nico Sylvian, Paul Quaid, and Underline V. Thank you so much, and check us out at patreon.com/flashback64.